Silent Hill 2 is my favorite horror game, and I don't think I could say that that's nostalgia speaking. The game holds up very well. I never played it when it first came out. I only recently got it for the PS2. The version I played first was the HD version, and I fell in love with the game instantly. I had never seen anything on any of these games. I think what got me into the game was hearing someone talk about the movie, and at the time I didn't know it was a game. This was probably the first time I was even hearing about the movie, anything from the franchise. They talked about it with such passion that even if it wasn't like good acting or the horror was any good, I knew it had to be a fantastic work of art, and that got me so curious. I had to see it for myself. I don't remember if I watched the movie or I played the game first, but both of them are incredible. Now, there are plenty of Silent Hill games. I've only ever played 2 and 3. 3 is also fantastic, but today we're just talking about 2. I think it's the best horror game that's ever been made. It doesn't rely on traditional scares in any way, and it is the only game I've ever played where I am constantly on edge, constantly feeling unsettled about everything I'm experiencing. And I say it still holds up to this game, and that is not nostalgia talking, because I only played it, realistically, I only played it recently. And you know, for how old the graphics are, it doesn't deter from how beautiful the game looks. And I have a deep appreciation for all kinds of graphics. I love older graphics just as much as I love brand new graphics, but it's different. The voice acting, you could say, is not the best. It's not. It's an older game, but I don't think this game would work the way it does if the voice acting wasn't like that. When I first played it, I tried with the HD remakes new voice acting because I was curious as to how that would go. And even though I had never experienced the original voice acting, I knew it just felt so out of place to the game. The new voices, it just didn't work. When the game starts, the first thing you get is why you're here. It opens with James looking in a bathroom mirror, examining himself, almost as if to question his reality. As we make our way outside, we hear Mary reading her letter to James.
In my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. Well, I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you.
After this, we make our way down a very long trail. I've seen that most people think this is a very slow, boring part of the game that just kind of takes you out of it, but I disagree entirely. This part of the game, I think, is crucial. It's setting everything up very slowly, yes, but it builds so much tension. As you walk down the trail, you're met with the score that seems to just be droning on in your head as you painfully make your way through these woods. There's frequent growling coming from the woods, putting you on edge, expecting something to jump out at any moment, the entire time, drawing anticipation out only for nothing to happen. This is how the game goes. This is what you experience through the entire game. Constantly growing anticipation for something to jump out at you, for the scare to finally be over. And it never happens. It builds up so much anxiety and fear inside you while playing. So it makes the horror of this game so good. It's more than just that, it's also the feel of everything working together. The monsters, the few characters you meet, the town, the whole environment. When you enter the town, you find it's abandoned. There's nobody here. It is so quiet, but the game is so deafening at the same time. There's constantly sounds going off in the background. Of course, that's just the score that is playing at the moment, but it blends in so well. You can feel how silent the town is, but it's also incredibly loud, putting you on edge. These sounds don't make any sense. As you walk a little further, you come across some blood on the ground. This is the first sign of, I guess, life, you could say, even though it's probably death. It's the first sign of anyone you come across. The game pans over to a figure walking through the fog, so you follow it. Eventually, you find yourself at a tunnel, boarded off, and you hear radio static. Now in this game, radio static means danger. But when we enter this, he doesn't even see the creature sitting right there. It makes no moves on him. It does not try to attack in any way. Though it does stand up and start walking towards him, it never attacks him. Frightened, he grabs a board of wood and you proceed to kill it. Now, at first I thought this moment had some kind of meaning behind it, because at no point does this creature attack you. And maybe there is some symbolism here, but I realized the reason it doesn't attack you is because there's no light. Most of the enemies in Silent Hill will not attack you if they can't see you. You can actually play this game very safely if you keep your light off, but it does make it difficult to see, obviously. Also, you can't pick up any items in the dark. There's also a body near the creature, and you may notice it has a jacket that very closely resembles the one that James wears. Immediately after this, going back into the town, these things seem to be everywhere. You hear the radio static going off constantly, louder as they draw near. So you traverse the town, trying to figure out what is going on, finding objects here and there. So the game doesn't make you completely clueless, though. You have a location to get to. We're trying to get to the Lakeview. As you try traveling that way, you find there are massive craters in the ground blocking the roads. I don't know the lore behind this, but there are plenty of them around the town, most of them blocking off the edge of town, making you feel more secluded. So you have to find your way around. So the only way to the other side is through an apartment complex, which we need a key for. We find this key on a dead body. Its head sort of resembles the creatures that you've been fighting. And then, once again, it has the same jacket as James. And you do come across other bodies. One thing I've noticed, and I don't know if it's every body you come across, but there are plenty of them. They all seem to resemble James. The body in the tunnel, you can see the jacket, and his hair looks similar. There's also a body on the road while running back to the apartments that has the same jacket. Very bloodied, so you can never really see their face, but the symbolism is obviously there. Now, I don't know why this is. I mean, the town is clearly messing with James, but he's not the only person here, and it's not like he's the only person that's ever been to this town, so why does every dead body look like James? Well, firstly, I'd like to point out that not everybody here sees the same things. Angela sees the town in flames. Laura doesn't seem to see any horrors at all. This is probably because the town is protecting her. She's young and innocent and doesn't have any crimes to answer for. She's not here because the town called her. She's here because she's looking for Mary. And I have no idea how Eddie sees the town, but every time we see him around dead bodies, they're always humans, not monsters. So he's clearly seeing real people. I mean, we do too, but he sees a lot more. I don't know if he sees monsters at all. Maybe all the monsters are real people. James in of himself, I would say, is a mystery. This entire time, he seems confused, not about where he is, but kind of about himself. He questions his own mental state more than he questions the things he sees in this town. I mean, his wife, as far as he knows, died 3 years ago. How could she even be alive here? But that never stops him from looking for her. He has to find out where this letter came from. As this goes on, as you realize he doesn't really know what happened to his wife, he can't remember, and the things that are symbolized through this game draws you to the conclusion that it's very possible that he killed his wife. And well, he did. I mean, that's how it ends. Spoilers, that's how the game ends. He killed his wife. Now, as for why he did it, really depends on the ending that you get. The good ending, he says that he just didn't want her to suffer anymore, but he's still in denial of everything that he's learned about himself. And then he corrects himself. She was a burden to him, and he didn't want to have to deal with it anymore. So he strangled her. But she forgives him and allows him to continue living on, having closure for what happened. Now, another reason that suggests that all those bodies are him is all the enemy types, other than Pyramid Head and Abstract Daddy is another one, but those aren't his monsters specifically. All the other enemies are feminine in figure, possibly resembling his wife. And knowing that we fight these monsters often, we kill almost everything we come across. The game is kind of hinting at the entire time what really happened to his wife is us, James. There's even a moment where, in the apartment complex, when you get your flashlight, you come across a mannequin. Not one of the enemy mannequins, but just a mannequin with some clothes. Now, you don't know this at first, but towards the end of the game, you see Mary in those same clothes. But this Mary turns out to be Maria, who very closely resembles your wife, but she's kind of a mystery this entire game. It's not till the very end that you really understand what she is. I mean, really, she is this town's version of Mary. Did the town create her? I don't really know, because there is an ending where you can leave with Maria, but the entire time, she doesn't seem real. I mean, you watch her die 3 times. I'd say the most unsettling part of this game is after she dies the first time. You find her in a cell, but she's not the same as she was before. And I think the graphics play a big part in this, but the lighting on her face, her demeanor, how cheerful she seems to be in this moment, and how clueless she is of what just happened. It doesn't seem like not just it's not the same person, but it feels evil. It seems twisted, and she sort of taunts James. It's just a very eerie interaction. So, I mean, that's basically their story. So let's move on to more gushing about the environment. Silent Hill is very dark visually. Before you find your flashlight in the apartment complex, you have to stumble through the halls, which is far more terrifying because you cannot see anything in front of you. You can only hear them. But as you make your way through the apartment complex, and really this goes for every location, there will be moments where you're walking through and it is silent. The only sounds is your footsteps and your radio if you are near an enemy. Other times you'll load into an area and it'll be very noisy. It won't even be the environment around you, it'll just be the score playing sounds that are just confusing and unsettling. It puts you on such an edge. It doesn't matter where you've loaded into, if you were here before or not. It doesn't always play in the same location, but it makes you feel like there's something there. Even if there isn't, even if you have killed every enemy in this hallway and you know that, you still feel that danger because of the scores that play in these locations. Everything puts you on edge, and I love it. Everything gives so much tension, and the scare never happens. This game has no jump scares, and that's what always cuts the tension in a horror game. When the scare comes, you have a moment of reprieve, knowing you're safe from the spooks for a moment. But in Silent Hill, that moment never comes. This game relies on sound, mostly sound. There's a moment in the game where you've just lost Maria, and there's a very somber score playing as you make your way out of the hospital. And here's how that section sounds when you're playing the game in 4x speed, in case you were wondering. And then, as you enter the next location, everything goes silent. It is the quietest moment in the game. And you would think, after being surrounded by so much noise that is causing you to panic, this would be a moment of comfort. But instantly, it makes you feel wrong. Something about it feels off. And as soon as you get what you thought would be comforting, it's not. And you wish you were back where you just were. This is also something I would say is a constant theme of Silent Hill. Between the normal world and the other world. I don't know what to call the normal world. Who cares? Being outside is where you start, in the foggy town of Silent Hill, and it is unsettling. You cannot see what is in front of you, and you are constantly hearing sounds that don't make sense. Then when you are in a building, you kind of wish you were outside again, because the environment gets even more unnerving. You're in a more confined space with creatures you cannot see without your flashlight, but if you have your flashlight on, you're in more danger. With the music scores going all over the place, putting you on edge, then you're in the other world, and you're not necessarily longing to be back where you were, but just to be outside, because you've been in this building for so long, and now you're here for longer in the other world, which is much more decrepit and twisted and frightful. And the other world happens in pretty much every location you go to. But at the hospital, instead of leaving the other world and getting to go back outside, you still get to go back outside, but you are still in the other world. This is one of my least favorite parts of the game. But that also makes it my favorite part of the game in terms of horror. Every second you spend out here is haunting. The fog is gone, or at least you can't see it, because you can't really see anything. You still have your flashlight, but it barely helps you at all. This is the darkest it will ever be. And while the score here is kind of simple, it sounds like sort of metal creaking, it doesn't stop. And there are enemies everywhere. So when you're not hearing your radio, you're hearing this music in the pure silence of the town, and it makes you feel horrible. The entire time I spent outside here, I always felt on edge. I felt like there was something behind me the entire time. And you're forced to go to locations all around here to find the tools you need to progress the story. So you're here for quite some time, and every second of it is not fun. And you can get lost pretty easily, which adds more time to being here. The darkness can be genuinely scary, and this game uses that well. There's another location when you're in the prison where you enter this massive room, and it's not really clear if you're outside and this is like a courtyard or what, but it's a freaky room. You hear an occasional shuffling around you. There's clearly something in this room with you, but you never see it. You don't find out what this creature was. And this adds on to what I was saying earlier about the scare never coming. This game mastered expectation subversion. No matter how many times it draws out a moment for something to happen, you still expect it to, and it doesn't. And that is why this is the best horror game. The tension is never broken, and the horror never ends. Okay, so I've been watching a Silent Hill 2 playthrough on the side, no commentary, just to get me in the mood for this, to really sink into this. The person is currently in the other world when you're outside, and they have been staring at the small metal box that's bolted to the ground for like 5 minutes. I don't know why. They will not move on. They use the wrench. There we go. The combat is another thing. The combat is very stiff and can be a little frustrating, but I don't think any other kind of combat would work. For the remake that's coming up, which is why I wanted to make this video, is because it got me really excited for the original. They changed up the combat, which I think it is the right move. I mean, it's a newer game. There's not as stiff of combat anymore. It might not work any other way. And I love Resident Evil style combat, and that's how this game looks like it's gonna be. But what made this game the way it is how restricted everything feels. The mechanics don't need to hold up, because part of the horror is your lack of maneuverability. From your movement to your weapons, that's one thing that's made me so skeptical about the remake. Obviously, it needs to be more smooth and feel fresh, as a new game should, but it should still have a level of restriction. Some parts of this game are very frustrating, but they feel so deliberately frustrating. Like from the angles of the camera, to your space you have to move around, and the combat, it adds to the stress and the fear. I don't know how they're going to be able to recreate the atmosphere of Silent Hill in this game, in this remake, but I am very hopeful for it. I will be playing it, and I may love it, even if it is not as good as the original. And I mean, it can't be. It won't be. You can't recreate the same feeling that the original Silent Hill gives you. That doesn't mean it can't be a good horror game. That doesn't mean it can't be a close second. The graphics play a huge part in what makes the original Silent Hill so horrifying. There's a sort of uncanny valley to it, you could say. But the recent trailer that was dropped for Silent Hill 2 got me very excited again. It got me motivated to start working on this video again. It looks good, as far as we can tell. It seems they worked out a lot of the issues of the gameplay we saw before. Obviously, that was unfinished gameplay. I mean, they're not going to show us the full product, full finished product yet. The only issue, we didn't see everything we needed to there, but the only issue that I saw with that was still some of the character models just feel weird. Mainly James, but I'm very excited for it, and I hope it does hold up, and I hope it does meet the expectation that we have for this game. I hope my rambling made sense and didn't confuse you too much. I will be making more that will be much more structured because they will be on one set of topics and I will get all the information I need for those topics. This was just me getting this out of my system so I could finally talk about this and make a video on it, and I really hope the new game is good, and if it isn't, I'll make a video on why. Or maybe I'll make a video on why it's great, who knows. The key to the horror in this game, other than one of the main points of the horror of this game, other than the sound design and the visuals, is expectation subversion. You're always anticipating what's about to come, and it never happens. If they ruin that in the remake, I genuinely don't think it'll work. I don't think the game will work. So I guess we'll have to see. This is my first video essay. It's probably not great, but I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, or night, or whatever.
James, you made me happy.
Sorry, one thing I forgot to touch up on is the soundtrack. The music for this game is legendary. It sets the tone for every moment so perfectly. Even when it's a track that may not sound like it belongs, they all just fit the atmosphere so well. And a lot of the music, as I had mentioned, are what make those eerie sounds you hear in the background. But I want to bring your attention to this one in particular. This has no business going this hard. Like, for real, can someone please sample this? Like, I don't even know where this plays in the game. I don't remember this at all. Okay, goodbye.